Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Jamaica Stock Exchange Group launch of our private market. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm the Deputy Business Development Manager at the JSE, and I want to, on behalf of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, wish you all a safe and prosperous 2021. And, we want to welcome you again to this launch. And with 2021 being a year when we all are looking for positive things and how we can best pivot around COVID and this pandemic as it affected us in 2020, we want to ensure that the stock exchange lead the way. And we want to start this year on a good note. And the best way to start that good note is to have new things and new and exciting things that our market and investors can participate. So before we start, however, I want to extend an apology on behalf of Mr. Everton McFarlane, Executive Director of the FSC, who is unable to make it to this launch. But without further ado, may I go straight into the program and ask Mr. Samuel Parks, Principal of JSE eCampus, to do prayer for us. Mr. Parks.
Good morning. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for each mind and heart that fills the presence of this e-room. Only you truly know what we're setting out to accomplish today with the launch of the private market. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Strengthen our confidence in who you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order for us to work together efficiently. Bless this launch today, all those present, as well as the lives of all those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride and selfishness. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Before we get into the full program, I just want to bring to you our meeting etiquette as it relates to how we proceed throughout this program. To ask questions during the Q&A, you are required to do so in the chat. Each participant is allowed a single question at a time. Please and kindly, please make your question short and direct. Ensure that your background and attire is appropriate before enabling your camera. So without further ado, I will now ask our Managing Director, Mrs. Marlene Street Forrest, to welcome you to this launch. Mrs. Forrest.
Moderator, Mr. Michael Johnson, Deputy Business Development Manager. Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clark, Minister of Finance and the Public Service. Her Excellency, Marianne Van Steen, the European Union Ambassador to Jamaica, Belize, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and the Cayman Islands. Head of Mission, Maria Carla Gulato, Italian Honorable Consulate. Chairman of the JSE, Mr. Julian Mayer. Deputy Chairman of the JSE, Mr. Livingston Morrison. Other members of the JSE Board. Mr. Stephen Gooden, President of the JSDA. Mr. Johan Heavens, Vice President, JSDA. Mr. Billy Marston, BOJ's consultant. Professor Neville Ying, Chairman JSSE, Mr. Andre Gooden, Group Business Development Manager, Mr. Samuel Parks, Principal, eCampus, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for being here today. Today has been eagerly anticipated by our exchange ever since we agreed with our market players a little less than a year ago to provide a private market to facilitate the listing of bonds and equity securities. I'm pleased to inform you that we collectively have delivered on our promise to launch this market today, January 11, 2021. This market facilitates the private listing and trading of securities that are issued in accordance with the FSC's guideline for exempt distribution. Consistent with this requirement, issuers of securities in the private market must first be registered with the FSC in accordance with the FSC's guidelines for exempt distribution for securities to be considered for listing on the JSE Private Market. We have, through the efforts of Billy Marston, our steering committee comprised of members from the Jamaica Securities Dealers Association, JSDA, the Financial Services Commission, and the Jamaica Stock Exchange, achieved this milestone as all dedicated their time in advancing the development from concept to completion. We are not a market without a trading platform and rules. So again, I must acknowledge the efforts of our internal team for ensuring that the platform has been fully and properly tested and the provisions on the website for the private market is in place. Our market is rule-based, as I said before, and we are proud of the excellent job done by the Regulatory and Market Oversight Division and also the Regulatory and Market Oversight Committee for the drafting and reviewing of these rules. I must specifically commend the Financial Services Commission for not only committing to reviewing these rules quickly, but delivering so ably on their promise. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a development which has had the buy-in of all stakeholders who not only walked the walk or talk the talk, but definitely ensure that they did all to respond to the demands of a market. Today is a great day for the JSE, where we can proudly welcome you and inform you that the private market is open for business, giving companies the ability to list their securities and qualified investors the opportunity to invest in instruments that could increase production within a regulated environment. We understand that to build a vibrant private market is an ongoing process, and we welcome you to join us in this journey as we resolve at the JSE to make a positive and lasting difference within the capital markets. We see the possibilities that they are endless. As we seek to grow the market and unleash an effective medium for the raising of capital, the regulation of activities, and the efficient transfer of ownership, there are several other areas of growth and expansion for our country and the region. I can tell you that the chairman is very bullish about regional expansion, and we will be getting there. In an age of uncertainty, but with great innovation and promise, where it is ever so critical to improve financial resilience, let us move forward with extending our services in this digital space. Let us examine more ways of democratizing investments and offering for ownership in areas such as this will unlock the value, whether in government or private capital. We understand that as we seek to provide these services, there are areas within the exchange group that require continuous improvement, which we do daily. And these and others will require that we work as partners in the capital markets to deliver on them. Successful initiatives that have been pursued within recent years include the migration to a new trading platform and a very new trade and surveillance platform, the development of the Jamaica Stock Exchange platform, the implementation of new fund management system, the pilot on the trading of digital currency, the mobile app for Apple devices, and the online trading platform phase 3, and the upgrade of the eCampus website. Incidentally, all these successes required market participation and market participants to provide feedback or directly assist in areas such as testing. Coming developments, innovations, or initiatives that are being pursued are just how we deal with cybersecurity, IT governance, risk framework, implementation of short selling, implementation of direct market access solution, trading of government bonds in collaboration with the Bank of Jamaica and the Ministry of Finance, data commercialization, the launching of green bond market, and again, online trading phase 5. And why I say this is that I could have captioned this welcome, one that says, we need buy-in. We need the intervention of all market players. These steps that have been taken, not only for digital transformation process, but to provide an inclusive space for investors and issuers, resulting in the following benefits, which is in keeping with our mission of providing a fair, efficient, and transparent stock market. One, the continued confidence in this market. Despite COVID-19 and the hit we took, but our market is resilient. The reduction of risk, the quick processing time for transactions, shorter settlement cycle, provision of an inclusive market. The exchange is on a path toward sustainability, given the number of opportunities that have been opened up and are garnered through integration with these automated systems, while continuing improving the business process and customer experience. This is not in isolation of a market, as we are ready to go where you dream. In an atmosphere towards financial solution, automation of manual work, and real-time market access, whether it is the public market or the private market, real-time market access. History has shown that our major successes are achieved when we work collectively in realizing these dreams. We will work with all parties to ensure that your requirements for growth are met. Your requirements are met. As we launch a private market today, we realize that this is not a perfect market. We know that, as with other markets, we may be required to lobby for the introduction of companion laws or changes to regulations to enhance its efficiency. Today, however, we begin the journey and understand that the conversation continues for future facilitation, whether from our brokers, issuers, government, or the JSE group. We urge you to make it happen. In closing, the JSE wishes to again thank the FSC and the government for their part in ensuring some of the regulatory roadblocks that would have prevented the efficiency and viability of the private market were removed. We look forward to the listing of many securities on this market and a robust secondary market. Again, I believe the possibilities are endless as we conquer the region and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I wish for you a prosperous 2021.
Thank you, Mrs. Forrest. And the fact that you mentioned the word region, I want to add to the fact that we have our investment and capital market conference that is coming up in the third week of this month, January 26th to 28th. And information is on our website, so we encourage persons to visit our website or contact the JSE Marketing Department for further information. Julie said, Mrs. Forrest, and I must also say that you did not hint on the fact that we have many, many more products coming forward in 2021, as we see 2021 as the year the stock exchange add more products to its product line and to engage investors. Thank you, Mrs. Forrest. Before I bring in Mr. Andre Gooden, Group Business Development Manager, I just want to advise you that the Minister will join us from Cabinet for his presentation. So we look forward to having him on shortly. Next, we have Mr. Andre Gooden, Business Development Manager and Project Leader on this particular project, and he will do his remarks and presentation. Mr. Gooden.
Thank you very much, Michael. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Minister, Madam Managing Director, President of the Jamaica Securities Dealers Association, other specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, stakeholders all, Happy New Year and thank you for joining us. I'm assuming you can hear me, Mike? I'm good?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Just very quickly, a very, very short presentation and overview of the private market and what we are doing. What is the private market? The private market is not a new market. It is already in existence. It exists currently through over-the-counter transactions where brokers, arrangers raise funds for private or public entities seeking to raise working capital, and they approach accredited investors to support these securities that are arranged specifically for these issuers. So the group, JSE Group, really has developed a portal for placing private debt and equity, introduce wider market participation and provide more efficiency in the market. This will provide dealers and qualified investors with more diversified investment opportunities, thereby increasing the activities within the market. Some of the benefits of the market, what might they be? Transparency. Certainly, as it is now, the transactions are taking place very efficiently, but we're adding to that, where everybody will be aware, all the participants will be aware of the transactions, the settlement of the transactions, and the pricing. It provides potential for greater liquidity. Right now, there is not significant secondary market trading of private securities in the over-the-counter market. So this is one thing that will definitely add to that. Uniform market-driven pricing. They're using the NASDAQ platform. There will be bids and offers, and when there is a meeting of the minds in that regard, a price will be established, mutually agreed price. So it will be clear to all and provide transparency as well. Of course, the compliance standards, as Mrs. Forrest just mentioned, exists on the Jamaica Stock Exchange platform, and we'll be applying these to the market as well. So again, bring more efficiency and more transparency. Price discovery again, much more easier to determine a real market price. And of course, this is just a few of the benefits. Seamless transfer of ownership. As it is now, the transactions take place over the counter, and this platform will provide us more seamless, more hassle-free methods of transferring ownership of these securities. Okay, let me see if I can advance this. Okay, the private portal really will be accessible only to accredited investors in accordance with the FSC's exempt distribution guidelines. Just a brief idea of the process. Brokers will request and receive approval from the Securities Commission, Financial Services Commission, beg your pardon, for a new placement. They will invite their network of accredited investors subscribe to these deals. If necessary, if required, the trustee services of the JSE trustee and registrar services can handle the subscription. The brokers will then submit an application for placement on the private market. And key to this is that existing issues that are already out there can be placed on the market as well as new issues. Thereafter, secondary market transactions will be conducted and settled electronically. So this is the framework on which we are building the private market platform. All right, this is what the page will look like. There will be a page on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, a landing page on the Jamaica Stock Exchange website, and when you go to member login, the investor or the broker will be able to access the market. I will now just very briefly share what the login screen will look like to give an idea of how the market how the platform will look. So this will be the broker login, and when the broker signs in here, you go to private market and you will see news relating to securities on the market. This will be accessible to the investors as well. If the investor goes to or the broker goes to the trade sheet, you will see this is an overview of all the securities available on the market. This is, of course, in test. This is not live data. This is just giving an idea. And you'll see an overview of what the last transaction trades were. The financials will be available. And other news will be available on this tab. And if the broker, for example, wants to find out about a particular issue, this one, and goes to the About screen, here you'd see the, for example, the term sheet, and the broker will look at the term sheet, identify who the issuer, who the issuing broker is, and be able to contact that broker or place a bid on the platform on behalf of their clients for any security that they wish to purchase. So it is very simple, very straightforward. The investor, him or herself, will have a similar view to this, except that the investor will only see securities in which he or she is investing. So that's the limited access only to brokers, of course, the regulator, and accredited investors who are participants in the market. So that is the very brief overview. I would want to thank Mrs. Forrest has already thanked several of the stakeholders, but I'd want to add my personal thanks as well, especially to the Financial Services Commission, Jamaica Securities Dealers Association, who will be moving a full vote of thanks later. And also to my new best friend, Mr. David Marston, Billy, who really has assisted us greatly in piloting this project and getting it through to where we are now. So with that as my overview, Mr. Moderator, back over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. And we are open for questions for Andre. And as I said earlier, it will be in the chat. So if there are any questions, I'm looking. And I see a question here from Altia that says, why won't investors be able to see all securities being traded on the private market? I think that question goes for you, Mr. Gooden. Okay,
based on the Financial Services Commission exempt distribution guidelines, there are certain qualification criteria which your broker will assist you in in making. And if the broker does determine that the investor, whether institutional or an individual investor, qualifies to access these securities under the exempt distribution guidelines, then certainly the investor will have access to the information.
Okay, thanks. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Altia Daly. I'm seeing no further question, and therefore I will move to the next person on our program is Mr. Ewan Haven, who is the Vice President of the Jamaica Securities Dealer, who will introduce the Minister. Mr. Haven.
Thank you, Michael. All protocols having been observed, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker this morning, a distinguished gentleman who is very familiar with all of us. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clark, Minister of Finance and the Public Service and Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Northwestern, to address us this morning. Welcome, Minister.
Johan, the Minister will join us shortly. I think we're having some technical challenges, but in the meantime, let me see if there are any questions in the chat as it relates to what has been presented so far. Oh, I have a question for you, Mr. Gooden. Are you there? I have a question for you. Can you just tell us or give us an idea of you mentioned that brokers are part of the group that will be able to access unaccredited investors. Kindly give us an indication who would fit as an accredited investor.
There are specific guidelines set up by the FSC regarding levels of liquidity, the size of one's portfolio, and the level of risk that such individuals would have to take on. So it is very specific regarding the amount of liquidity that the individual has and the amount of diversity that the risk tolerance of the individual. But it is certainly it is laid out very, very clear on the Financial Services Commission's website as well as to what the criteria are. You're muted, Mike. You're muted, Michael.
Oh, sorry about that. I see another question here that says,
and Mr. Heaven.
What are the rules of exemption?
What are the, well, that would have been a similar question to the previous.
And I've seen one here that says, are there any initial private market listings?
We'll take that shortly.
We'll take that shortly. That's a surprise. Yes. We hope so.
That's a surprise.
Okay. Will the listing on the market be compulsory for new issuers or existing issuers?
No, the market is not compulsory. And probably you could get Mr. Heaven to speak to his outlook for the private market while the minister is still getting ready.
Okay, Johan, over to you. Can you speak about the outlook of this private market?
Sure. The private market has been long overdue. And us as a Securities Dealers Association are quite excited for this launch. We've been working on it for over a year now. And some of the points that Andre pointed out in his presentation, which we believe are key to the creation of an efficient market, we believe will come from this launch, especially the transparency and the ability to see all the trades that happen on the private side. Most of the private listings make up a huge portion of the market, and right now, the trading of those securities, which happens over the counter, is not fully transparent to the market. So only the two participants, the buyers and the sellers, are able to see, what the price and the volumes that are being traded. So this will bring a whole new paradigm to the trading of private securities for the market, to open up the market for new issuers. Price discovery, again, is critical. A lot of us dealers hold these securities in our portfolios, and we carry them at par right now because there is no available market for us to establish a price that these securities trade at. So the establishment of this private market and the transparency and the prices being displayed on a daily basis, bids and asks, will allow us to now mark to market these securities in our portfolios based on actual trading of these securities in the market. It makes these securities a lot more liquid. So for investors that invest in these securities, there is an exit. In the past, the exit would have been up to your investment house to provide an exit for you, but this market now avails you of an exit and a transparent exit in which you can see where the bidders and the offers are in able to sell and purchase the securities. So we're very, very excited about this development. As I say, the private market is huge, and for us to now have an established platform for the trading of these securities is really a significant development for the Jamaican market. And as a whole, just the ability for issuers to raise capital, debt, and equity, who may not be in a position or ready to go to the full public route, but want to raise, initially on a private placement or on exempt distribution. So, we're really happy for this development.
Thank you, Johan. And the minister is now on. And without further ado, I welcome Dr. the Honorable Nigel Clark, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, as keynote speaker on the importance of the private market to the economy. Minister Clark.
Hi, morning to everybody, and especially to members of the Jamaica Stock Exchange and to broker-dealers, investors, corporates, and others. Today is Monday, and so it's a meeting of the cabinet. And when I was invited to give remarks for this function, I could not miss the opportunity because of the importance of it. You will recall several years ago that the government made much of improving access to finance as a key component and a key pillar for unlocking economic growth in the future. And those were not idle words. Since that time, we have been working assiduously to improve access to finance, to lower the cost of capital, because at the end of the day, finance and capital are the oxygen of business. At some point, we will sort of tie those dots together for everyone to sort of see all of the various steps that have been taken. But the reform of the Bank of Jamaica is a key component, the capitalization of the central bank, and the move to move away from using prudential tools or prudential indicators as tools of liquidity management, and is a big part of that push as well. I'm very proud that in the midst of the pandemic, life and business activity in Jamaica continues, and in particular, we continue to build institutions. Only a few weeks ago, we passed the legislation in Parliament to make the central bank independent with new governance, best-in-class governance, accountability, and transparency mechanisms. This offers a new phase in Jamaica's growth and development that will support the kind of activities that we're speaking about today, and as well as to support the general well-being of all Jamaicans. We, in the midst of the pandemic, have also tabled legislation to establish a Fiscal Commission. We will be bringing the Microcredit Act to Parliament and having it passed, along with measures that we celebrate today and others that I'll mention in a few moments. And the unmistakable message is that in the worst crisis in 100 years, Jamaica has been able to maintain stability. Yes, we've had to adjust. Yes, we have had to rearrange our expenditure to fit the circumstances and to fit the time and to prioritize health and social support. But we continue to put in place the founding building blocks for the new Jamaica that we all want to see. Now, what we are celebrating here today would have been a dream of the generation that preceded everyone here now, to have the facility for transparent mechanism for the pricing and the trading of private market securities. Now, the Jamaica Stock Exchange private market platform, as others have mentioned this morning, will allow for the listing and trading of private market securities on a NASDAQ platform. And as Johan was speaking to just now, this will allow for greater price discovery and for greater liquidity, which in themselves have a lot of spin-off benefits. It will build secondary market participation and will offer opportunities for investors and corporates alike. Now, just framing today's discussion in the broad envelope of why capital markets are important, as we all know, these all market participants here, capital markets allow for financial intermediation where users of capital and providers of capital have a mechanism for exchange. But if that mechanism for exchange is opaque or is illiquid, huge problems can emerge and huge mispricing can emerge, which can lead to fundamental structural difficulties in the economy. So if we're going to have an economy that the private sector is responsible for the allocation of capital, you can't just say that. And for many years, that's what we would just say that. That was Jamaica's preference for the past 30 years. But it has to be accompanied by the enabling mechanisms that allow for that allocation of resources in the economy to occur efficiently. Because when resources are allocated inefficiently, you cannot have productivity growth over an extended period of time. So what we are trying to do here today is not only improve access to finance, but put in place the mechanisms that ensure for the most efficient allocation of capital, i.e., if you don't have an idea of how a particular security is performing and the market's view of it is not embodied in its price, then you can have more and more resources being allocated towards an enterprise that's really not productive and that's not really adding value overall. Now, people always make errors in their decisions, and that's a part of the market as well. But if there are structural impediments towards price discovery, then we will have a misallocation of capital. And that is highly, highly dangerous. If we're going to have a market economy, then we have to have a market economy through and through with the enabling mechanisms that allow persons to make informed decisions that ultimately benefit us all. Now, both public markets and private markets are critically important. And both in terms of debt financing, clearly there's a plethora of options ranging from senior debt, banking financing, all the way down to mezzanine and quasi-equity. As Jamaica grows and develops, the size of the capital markets component of financing, is dwarfing the banking component. Indeed, the last figures I looked at, which several months ago now, would have shown that as far as banking assets, if you compare the size of the banking sector to the size of the non-financial banking sector, the non-financial banking sector is actually larger than the banking sector. And that just gives you a proxy of the importance of the securities and non-bank securities sector to the Jamaican economy. But if you look at growth, growth tells the picture much more clearly. Whereas we're very proud of the fact that we have had loan growth in the banking sector at about 16% year on year for a couple of years in a row, between 15 and 16. And even in the pandemic to September 30, 2020, we had loan growth over September 30, 2019, albeit at a slightly lower clip than the previous year. But when you look at that growth rate and you compare it with the growth rate of the private securities market with respect to debt transactions, we have seen between 2020 and 2017 a doubling of private bonds that have been in issuance, moving from approximately 200 billion Jamaican dollars in 2017 to over 400 billion dollars in 2020. So what you have is, over the same period of time, and I'm just giving an approximation here, loan growth in the banking sector would have grown at 16 and 16, say 30% or thereabouts, or 35%, whereas the private bond market over a similar time period would have grown by 100% or thereabouts. So there is no doubt that we are in a period of time where we are seeing an explosion of interest in private securities, both from the point of issuance and from the point of view of those who are in use of funds. Now, the reasons for this are at least twofold. The first is that as the government's appetite for borrowing has receded, as we have gotten our fiscal house in order and we're pursuing our objectives in a very responsible and transparent and accountable way that assures debt sustainability for this generation and for future generations, it has created surplus funds becoming available for other activities. There was a time when the government of Jamaica would have crowded out the private sector with its voracious appetite for borrowed credit from the local market. With that being subdued, we are seeing it has provided the opportunity for those funds to be channeled to the private sector through means such as private bond issuance. But there's another reason or another factor, and that factor is more decisive, or more, not decisive, the word I want to use, is more deliberate. And it is related to what I spoke about earlier, that we have made a concerted effort to improve access to finance. And so 2 years ago, I established a financial deepening implementation group chaired by David Marston, the esteemed David Marston, whose reputation precedes him and has a lot of experience in monetary and other matters around the world, and has been a critical advisor to the government, to the central bank, and to the regulatory authorities. And through his effort, collaborating with the Bank of Jamaica, collaborating with the Financial Services Commission, with the Development Bank of Jamaica, and now with the Jamaica Stock Exchange, we have made a determined effort to improve the ecosystem to facilitate this kind of growth. And there are a number of things that have happened, and I'll speak to one or two of those. So if you put those two factors together, they account for this massive growth in the private bond market that we are seeing and that we will continue to see. Now, as I said earlier, having this growth, but not having the transparency for the price discovery and for people to make informed decisions about where to place their money would not be responsible. And so at the same time that we have enabled this growth through the fiscal decisions of the government and through the proactive decisions, or reform decisions that we have made through this financial deepening group, it was incumbent upon us to ensure that a mechanism for transparency was developed. And I'm very pleased with the entrepreneurial energy and vision of the Jamaica Stock Exchange to seize the opportunity. So what we celebrate today is a result of a combined effort of many people. Now, related to this reform is the reform in the BOJ, where the liquidity requirements will allow for securities that are deemed to be high quality, right, and highly liquid to form part of the prudential measures required to be met by institutions regulated by the Bank of Jamaica. Now, that is critically important because it allows us to structurally reduce the cost of capital by requiring institutions to hold less with the central bank and the central bank having other means at its disposal with the $50 billion of capital that we have placed in the central bank over the past 2 years in order to tame liquidity. And at the same time, when you have a measure that allows for high quality assets and highly liquid assets to form a part of these prudential reserves, it improves the cost of capital because no longer, the private sector is crowding in, not only in the area where the government used to borrow, but it's crowding in even into the hallowed space that used to be reserved for these prudential requirements at the central bank. But we can't have that measure in place that ultimately results in a lowering of the cost of capital without having the institutional mechanism to ascertain whether a security is highly liquid and to ascertain whether a security is of high quality. So what we launch and celebrate today will allow us, it will be very easy to determine whether this security issued by this company is a highly liquid security. We can look at the traded volumes and it's transparent for everybody to see. So if you hold this security and you use it as part of your prudential reserve requirements, it is allowed. And that decreases the cost of capital to those entities. And once you decrease to those entities, it will decrease to others as well, who issue securities that are highly liquid and of high quality. And related to that, the other institutional development is that CARICRIS, our own rating agency right here in the Caribbean, will be establishing an office right here in Kingston, Jamaica, which is only their second office and the only office outside of their headquarters in Trinidad and Tobago. And that sends an unmistakable message that Jamaica capital markets have a huge growth phase ahead, but we're doing it in a responsible way where we can have transparency, price discovery, and ensure that there's an efficient allocation of capital once those institutional mechanisms are in place. And the third element of the institutional development that is complementary to what we celebrate here today is the fact that the government of Jamaica debt securities will also be traded on a similar platform, which will allow for us to have an observable yield curve, for a transparently observable yield curve for the first time, right? Yes, there's a yield curve. You can go into Bloomberg and you can see what they report people are trading, but there's nowhere for anybody to see, all the trades taken or the majority of the trades taking place. So this one will be a step forward because of its transparency. And once we have a government of Jamaica yield curve, corporates will be able to price off of that yield curve, and again, allowing for a much more efficient allocation of capital. In a market-based economy, you never want to be in a situation where you think you're buying apples, but you're actually, getting breadfruit. And by putting these mechanisms in place, we ensure that transparent information will be available about these securities, which will only serve to improve our capital markets. Now, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and while other countries are busy trying to plug financing gaps and trying to, reorder their affairs, and yes, we are going to have to make trims and here and there as we adjust. Jamaica, as I said before, is busy making these sort of institutional and fundamental reforms, and the benefits of these reforms are to the businesses and corporates who now will be able to access capital in a transparent manner, and and if you make use of the other provisions that we're putting in place and the financial deepening group has been working on, such as having the characteristic rating agency here in Jamaica, where you can actually get rated, entities have the prospect of lowering their cost of capital and therefore increasing their productivity and contributing to Jamaica's growth. And at the level of the investor, having a transparent private market, a transparent market for bonds. Remember that in the market for private securities today, that market is only open to accredited investors. By having a transparent tradable platform for bonds, private bonds, we will broaden the investable universe the universe of investors who can access these securities. And so it will offer the opportunity for persons to diversify, to improve their sort of risk return trade-offs, and to have a better information on which they can make more intelligent decisions. And having liquidity, the ability to get out, will be an enhanced feature of this initiative. So I welcome this event today, and I welcome and I congratulate the Jamaica Stock Exchange and the Financial Deepening Group chaired by David Marston. And this is a fundamentally positive step that will be to Jamaica's benefit and will allow us to achieve the improvements that we seek in our economic growth, in the efficient allocation of capital. But importantly, as I mentioned, this is only one of a suite of complementary steps that we are proactively taking to improve access to finance, because we believe in the vital importance of access to finance to build the kind of Jamaica that we want to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for your insights on where we go and what are being done to improve and deepen the financial ecosystem. And we at the Stock Exchange here are pleased and already on board to assist in any way, shape, or form that we can. And we will continue to see how we can be a part of that deepening of the ecosystem. And we ourselves are working on some products to facilitate that depth in the system for investors, corporate and individual investors. Again, Minister, I want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you and your team as we continue to develop our capital market in Jamaica. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I would love to stay for the remainder of the function. I've seen the order of events. I would love to hear from the speakers who follow, but I have to get back into cabinet, as you will no doubt understand. But thank you for having me, and congratulations to everyone.
Thanks. And I'm not seeing any question here for you, so I'm sure everyone is clear on the path that the government that you lead in terms of the ministry is taking the capital market environment. Thanks again, and we look forward to further development in this way.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There are some questions in the chat, and I will direct them to persons who have spoken before. And Mr. Gooden, I think I want you to take this one from Denise Williams that says, will the platform be accessible to JTrader Pro?
Will the platform be accessible to JTrader Pro?
Right.
For accredited investors?
Okay. And the other question, Mr. Gooden, I know you're there. So this one, I have two for you. This one is from Audrey Richards, and it says, is there a tax benefit on transferring through this market?
Tax benefit on transferring security. Well, any income earned here, interest income, is taxable. If the investor is an entity that is doesn't pay income tax or withholding tax, beg your pardon, then that's different. But all the securities for the regular investors, retail investors, or institutional investors, the interest earned is in fact taxable.
Thank you, Mr. Gooden. And there is another question here that says, will the private market, will the private placement liquidity allow for more creative debt, such as zero-rated coupon notes?
It's not impossible. Certainly the advent of the market will give the opportunity to create more alternatives, more types of securities for the market. So that is entirely possible, and it's not unlikely. As it relates to JTrader, remember now that these securities are not accessible to the general public. These will be restricted to accredited investors only. Right. So JTrader is accessible to all our investors, and these securities would not be accessible to all investors on JTrader.
Okay, and from Marianne that says, will tokenized securities be eligible for the private market?
In subsequent phases of development, certainly, yes.
Let me see if there are any other. I see one here, another from Audrey Richards, which says, clarifying earlier, read the tax transfer on ownership of assets on the platform versus over the counter.
Michael, I wanted Stephen Gooden to, if he's there, to answer that question that is raised by Audrey. Stephen, or certainly the chairman or Johan, because they're really talking about the transfer tax.
Okay, Stephen.
Okay, good afternoon. All right. So as it relates to the platform, you recall the platform facilitates the trading of securities, right? So all the tax regimes, all the features of exempt distributions when traded over the counter, those pretty much continue on the platform, right? So if it is that you were to list, say, private equity, right, then transfer tax ought to apply, right? To the extent that you trade exempt distributions and there are no taxes paid, the same thing will apply once listed on the platform.
Oh, okay, I hope that clarified for you, Audrey, your question.
Yes, for sure, thanks.
Okay. This one from DR says, does this mean that accredited brokers could access the private market through the JTrader Pro without having to log in to the private market platform?
No, there'll be no
because
JTrader Pro for the private market.
No.
Right.
Not at this point, at least, probably a second iteration, but at this point, the access is not through JTrader Pro.
And the simple reason is that because it's for accredited and the JTrader Pro is wider for the public.
And possibly you might have workaround, but not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Forrest and Mr. Gooden and Stephen Gooden. All right, so what brought us here? The stock exchange opens its door on February 3rd, 1969. And with this video, it will show you the evolution that we have taken over our years. We're going to, my maths is as good as yours, 52 years. And we look forward to seeing what will happen in 2021. So please watch this video as we look at the evolution of the exchange thus far.
The Jamaica Stock Exchange has been operating for over 50 years with the mandate to mobilize capital. The JSE has done this not only to grow business and create wealth for investors, but in doing so, has become a part of the economic foundation of the country. Hence, the exchange is not only known for the 4 markets which it operates, main market, junior market, US dollar market, bond market, but it is also recognized for its efficient depository services. The JSE's Depository Services unit provides clearing and settlement, custody services, pledging of securities, mandate processing, and audit confirmation, among other corporate secretarial services. In 2008, the JCSD Trustee Services was established to provide efficient, reliable, and cost-effective services to the financial services industry. We are a firm believer in transparency and effective regulation. Hence, the JSE was demutualized in 2008. This saw the establishment of the Regulatory Market Oversight Division to ensure that the JSE's commercial and regulatory arms operate as independent units to allow for proper corporate fiduciary management. This process has strengthened our listed companies to better be able to manage disruptions and usually to merge as stronger institutions. Through hard work and the input of all market participants, the JSE has been twice recognized by Bloomberg as the best performing stock exchange in the world, 2015 and 2018. The JSE is also recognized for hosting the leading investments and capital markets conferences in the Caribbean, and we want to become known to host the leading conferences in the world in the future. The stock exchange has not only looked to facilitate business success, but also looked on how to give back to society. And out of that was born the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, which has risen to the occasion and has been contributing well in reshaping the social fabric of our society. The JSE is well aware of the need for market education for sustainability through a well-trained workforce. Therefore, the JSE has developed accredited e-campus programs to ensure that the industry at all professional levels has the cadre of staff that is needed to propel it forward. Please visit the eCampus student portal at ecampus.jamstockx.com. Please visit the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange at jsse.jamstockx.com. For more about the Jamaica Stock Exchange, please visit jamstockx.com. what's next for the JSE. The JSE Private Market with endless possibility.
And here we are for the launch of the Jamaica Stock Exchange Private Market platform. And we look forward to having as many investors on board. Next on our agenda, we have Ms. Stacey Ann Tate, Vice President Investment, NCB Capital Market Limited, with an announcement. Ms. Tate.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we've been talking a lot about the launch of the private market, and to kickstart the activity on the Jamaica Stock Exchange Private Market web portal, it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to be able to share with our audience today that NCB Capital Markets Limited has in fact received a listing for 2 existing corporate bonds. Now, the listing of these 2 existing corporate bonds will see to a total outstanding value being listed of $7 billion. Now, I think that's a very nice way to get the activity kick-started on the market. Now, the issuer for this security, the issuer is a blue chip entity. The issuer has strong, robust financial performance, is an investment grade issuer. And so this is just a part of getting the activity started for deepening the financial market. Now, throughout the discussions or the presentations that would have been put forward today, you would have heard about deepening the financial market, a strategic initiative that has been embraced by the government of Jamaica, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Financial Services Commission, the Bank of Jamaica, and also to industry participants. And no doubt here at NCB Capital Markets Limited, we embrace deepening the financial markets. And so in addition, one of our strategic thrusts for the quarter of, or the first quarter, I should say, of 2021 is to see to an additional listing where we bring 2 additional securities. So with the upcoming week here on us, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, please look out for the application that we will be filing with you for the launch of these 2 existing bonds, and to look out for others from us and others in the industry. And we know that this listing and others to come will indeed provide great activity, the kind of activity that Mrs. Street Forest referred to earlier in her presentation. So once again, look out for the activity, and JSE, get ready for the application that we will be filing with you momentarily. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If you want me to come for it, I'll come and get it, Stacey, if you want me to come for it.
On its way.
And Stacey, you use a word, you describe it as nice. I would have wanted you to use a more, exciting and wonderful way to kickstart this opportunity, because what we want to ensure that persons see this market as an opportunity to really get what they desire, and the JSE is ready and to put, as we are putting the necessary things in place to facilitate transactions like these. So once again, NCB Capital Market at the front, and we look forward to having all of our participating brokers on board in short order. And thanks again, very, very much again for this opportunity.
Mr. Johnson, just before you go on, Mr. Johnson, I have a question. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is a good time to bring it in. I got an email from an investor who has a security that is not listed that they want to sell, and they asked me if that can be done on the stock exchange. And the answer is that if the security becomes listed on the platform by your broker, it can be sold on our platform. Other than that, you would have to contact the broker who will arrange an over-the-counter transaction for you. But certainly try and encourage your broker to list the security and widen the opportunities for sale.
Right. Thank you very much, Andre, for that. To bring us to an end for this launch, and I call on Mr. Stephen Gooden, President of the Jamaica Securities Dealers Association, who will do the closing remarks.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have witnessed another game-changing market innovation. Jamaica continues to lead the Caribbean in this regard, and I must congratulate the Jamaica Stock Exchange on continuing to be a key enabler. The benefits of having exempt distribution trade on a platform is clear. So, my namesake, Andrea Gooden, would have touched on it. The minister would have touched on it. Marlene would have touched on it. It allows for better price discovery and harmonization of lending terms, quicker and more efficient transaction execution via the NASDAQ platform, lower rates for borrowers as the illiquidity premium falls, and it allows for better risk management of the part of investors and positively impacts the universe of allowable assets as institutional investors, by virtue of regulation or their own internal policies, have liquidity boxes to tick depending on the asset class. I mean, if you look long term, this move is an enabler, precursor for greater innovation, bringing us closer to becoming a first world market in terms of sophistication. And the question was asked earlier about zero coupon bonds and so on. This opens the door for greater innovation, and I can go on and on. It is clear, though, that this platform is a win-win for all, the issuers, the investors, market makers, such as the securities dealers, and ultimately a big win for our financial market. It would be remiss of me not to use this medium to commend the minister on his leadership in deepening the local capital markets. I mean, the speed at which this initiative has come to fruition is testament to the strong alignment that the players have when it comes on to capital markets development. And the minister has definitely set the tone in his actions, and you heard it in his remarks earlier. I must say that the level of engagement, by the regulators over the past 2 years, I have not experienced in my 20 years in the industry. I mean, we always have our fights, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and I want to encourage them, both the Financial Services Commission and the Bank of Jamaica, in continuing the work in facilitating market growth. Thank you. I know the minister, he has his plate full in having to deal with the effects of COVID-19 on the fiscal and the economy as a whole. However, I want to encourage him not to get distracted when it comes on to the government of Jamaica support to our capital markets. Given the impact of COVID on cash flows and capital of businesses, it is obvious that more flexible financing solutions are needed to pull us out of this crisis into recovery. In this regard, the capital markets is key as it provides the kind of flexibility that the traditional sources can't because of risk appetite. So the capital markets now, ladies and gentlemen, is needed more now than ever before. Secondly, I want to challenge the minister and all market participants, as a matter of fact, to think big. Let's not limit ourselves to simply just deepening our local markets. Let's be aspirational. Let's craft a vision for Jamaica to become recognized internationally as a niche player in the global markets. We are known for music and sports in a big way. Why not in the world of finance? If the likes of Chile, Vietnam, and Singapore can, why can't Jamaica? It all starts, ladies and gentlemen, with a bold vision. In closing, I want to thank a number of persons and entities for making this a reality. The Private Market Steering Committee, as mentioned before, consisted of representatives from the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Financial Services Commission, and the Jamaica Securities Dealers Association. Thank you. From the industry to the GSDA, we saw proven Jane Fund Manager, JMMB, and NCB Capital Markets stepping up to be on the committee. The representatives were Yuan Heaven, Kwame Brooks, Stacey, and Tate. It was a pleasure working with you all, and I thank you very much for your contribution. David Billy Marston, former IMF risk officer and GOJ consultant on capital markets deepening, has done a lot in bringing us together and providing leadership along the way. Thank you, and I look forward to us continuing the work to make the vision outlined earlier a reality. Thanks to those involved in making this virtual event a success. Thanks to you, the attendees, for being here. We look forward to seeing a few listings on the platform in the upcoming weeks, and see you all at the JSE Investments and Capital Markets Conference on the 26th to 28th of this month. I gather it promises to be exciting. Thank you. I wish for you all a great day and a prosperous 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And we at the Jamaica Stock Exchange, again, thank you for attending this launch. And we have many more activities throughout the year. Stephen ended with our Investment and Capital Market Conference, and the registration is open. So for persons, we ask that you register early and ensure that you are fully on board. It will be a hybrid, but most of it will be, of course, virtual. So we look forward to having you at our conference. And again, I want to thank you for attending this morning's launch, and have a wonderful day. My name is Michael Johnson. It was my pleasure to be the master of ceremony this morning, and I look forward to seeing you again at our other events throughout the year. Thank you.